years right here. Uh, through the beginning portion here of training camp, you've had D Ford and Jalen Hurd and Nick Bosa. They've all been kind of rehabbing back from injuries, and Ford and Hurd were kind of on that same path as Bosa as far as just taking place uh, in the individual periods of practice, not really getting in during the team reps. But that changed this week when the pads went on, and so is it time to start worrying about Nick Bosa and what's going on with him?
I'd say a little bit. I mean, don't stress yourself out over it. I'm sure he's going to play, but you know, this is something that we talked about in the past is don't think that Bosa is just going to come in and play 75-80% of the snaps. Like that's not going to happen. And that's why it was so important, in my opinion, at the time to go after a Justin Houston or an Ingram or what have you, because between him and Ford, even if they are quote unquote healthy, they're not going to play a lot of these snaps. And so you're going to need depth behind him. And Ebicom is nice, but then who, right? Sure, maybe Arden Key's fine. But even if you took Willis and Arden Key, and Willis, by the way, is suspended, but if you take those two and you add up their career sacks, it's a half a sack more than what Justin Houston got last year. And Justin Houston did it in half the snaps. So I still feel like edge, they could use some help there. Is it the most important thing? No. Corner is certainly the most dire need position on this team, but definitely know that Bosa is not going to play a ton, at least early on, while he's getting back in. And the fact that he's been getting multiple rest days tells you exactly how they plan on handling it. And it's interesting because I feel like everything they said about D Ford and how they were going to handle that situation is actually how they've started to handle the Bosa situation, and they're pressing in on D Ford a heck of a lot more. So that's just an interesting scenario that's playing out.
Yeah, and one of the things that you had mentioned, was Arden Key and his role in this, and I think it's important to note that the guy that's actually been taking the spot of Nick Bosa has been Samson Ebicom. He's been the guy that's been playing that open defensive end spot, and so he's the one that's in that role. The only concern that I really have here is, you listen to, we knew that they were going to take this slow, right? Kyle Shanahan mentioned that in the first press conference. These guys are going to work individuals. We're going to ramp them up, that whole thing. The fact that Bosa hasn't been in any contact drills other than hitting the sled, that's the only thing that concerns me. And it kind of comes from what he said yesterday was, the main thing with Bosa is that he needs to get out there and he needs to show that he can, be the guy that Nick Bosa is, right? He needs to get the reps so that he can get the confidence and get himself going. And that's what D'Amico Ryan said yesterday in his press conference. And Bosa's not getting those reps. We're now, heading into practice number 8, which we're getting really close to week 1 of the preseason, and he has yet to actually hit anybody full speed in pads, other than a blocking sled, anything that's got movement. So, am I extremely worried about it? No, but I think that it's something to be a little bit concerned about, because if he doesn't start ramping up here pretty soon, chances are his snaps are going to be really low early in the season, because he's just not going to have that, that wear and tear on his body that it's going to need to be ready to play a football game.
Yeah, I said it a couple of weeks back. Expect less than 40% of the defensive snaps, at least for week 1, maybe the first few weeks up until that bye week. But, and people didn't want to hear it then, but I think they might be tuning in on that a little bit more, just because they need to take it slow with them. There's no reason. They really, and Jay Louie, by the way, 007 here on Twitter, he's right. No, they're doing a great job of managing his play. We need him for the whole season. And you're absolutely right. They need him for the whole season. Him coming out and playing 80-90% of the snaps during week 1 does nothing for this team in the long run. You've got to wean him back into this game and allow him to make it through the rest of the season. And really, it's about a year and a half or so after that ACL is when you really start to hit your stride, which puts us thankfully, right around playoff time. So let him get that strength back, let him get that confidence back, and just limit his play as much as you can and worry about his cardio management and getting that ramped up. And come playoff time, we're going to have a beast on our hands. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Making sure that he's there at the end of the season or throughout the second half of the season, obviously is important. It's just, for me, the only concern is he going to be ready to go? He hasn't played a lot in the NFL. He only played the one season in a game, right? But if he comes out, I would expect a season similar, like what you said, where he's really being worked in slowly. That's what they did at Ohio State when he was coming off of a knee injury there. He had hurt his knee, remember, in high school in his first year at Ohio State. I know he was a freshman, but they still were rotating him in and not giving him a ton of reps until his second season with them. So I kind of would expect that. So if you're betting on Bosa to win any kind of awards, I wouldn't do it. Don't expect a really big season from him, but expect him to maybe have a big contribution over the second half of the year, I think is the direction that we both agree with there.
For sure.
And then really quick while we're here, Luke, again, this is another good one. Is it time to start worrying about Javon Kinlaw? He's in a very similar boat to Nick Bosa in that he's not taking an awful lot of reps against people either. I know he hasn't taken any reps in the one-on-one drills between the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman. And as far as team drills, I think he might have played a couple of snaps on Wednesday, but it doesn't sound like he took any on Thursday. Played some on Tuesday, but maybe not on Wednesday. And if he did, it was only one or two. And so this might be another
something like he pulled himself after a play or in a drill. I'm not quite sure the details on that, but he pulled himself and didn't play. Yeah, I'm definitely worried about Kinlaw, and this is his second year, and year one he wasn't able to go through training camp the way that normal rookies would, and none of those rookies were. And so year two, this time for those guys that were rookies last year, is extremely important for them to get on the field as much as possible. And I know that he put on his social media that he said he's got no injury. What else is he supposed to say? Okay, you think he's gonna just come, oh no, I'm injured, I'm hurt. Screw the, despite what the reports are, I'm certainly hurting over here. No, he's not going to do that. So there's something going on there. There's definitely something going on. You can go back to last week on this show or Grant's show or whatever, and I go in depth about it. But the bottom line is something's up. To the extent, I'm not sure. I have a hunch, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and it's just odd that even came out. There wasn't a whole lot of reason for him to even go out there and throw that out there. Unless he was checking social media and he ran across your interview. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was your fault that he did. It's your fault. You started the whole conversation on 49ers Twitter talking about Kinlaw and his arthritic knee. Maybe that's what it was. now that I'm thinking about it, come on, Jesse.
I'd love to think I'm that important, but I highly doubt that.
Well, that's the thing, these guys, they're on social media, and there are members of the 49er fan kingdom that take it upon themselves to throw things at these guys so that they can, for whatever reason, they like to, if there's an argument or beef going on about a player, there's some folks that for whatever reason will just go ahead and they'll just be like, hey, at whatever Javon Kinlaw's at is, check this out. And all of a sudden now this guy's, instead of just letting the guy be doing this. Yeah. I think that's the other piece too. And if you're on 49ers Twitter enough, it's pretty easy to figure out who some of these folks are, but we'll keep that to another another time. But real quick, Raymond, he's another one of our he's always on here with us, and he mentions, the good news about the whole thing with Javon Kinlaw is that interior D line is pretty stacked, and that's for sure. And one of the things of the topics when we were talking about this that I was throwing out was maybe throwing out some of the names of guys who are surprising. And for me, the one guy that surprised me so far and with what he's looked like through camp has been Kentavious Street. Yeah. He looks like he's really, really good, in good shape and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he really does. He really does. And that's a good thing. I mean, he's right. Between Gibbons and DJ Jones and Kentavious Street, they're healthy there. Kerr, they're healthy. So it's, I guess I'm not so worried about this season. It's just more long term. Like what what if anything is Kinlaw really going to bring to the table? It's, could be a wasted first round pick. And it's hard to continue being competitive when you throw away first round picks on a regular basis. So maybe it's not the end of the world that they don't have any for the next couple of years. You can't lose if you aren't making a pick, right? Like that's it. So good thinking.
You can't blow it if you don't make a choice. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Street is the guy that's taking those starters reps in place of Kinlaw. So when Kinlaw's not out there, it's Kentavious Street, and he's a guy that was drafted as a defensive end, but he's really big and he's doing a really good job inside. The other guy inside that was you mentioned Kevin Givens, he's doing really well also, but Zach Kerr is a guy that I was interested in seeing, and he struggled a little bit in the one-on-one pass rush drills. His numbers aren't all that great throughout his career, and he doesn't. Right now, I know we're so early in camp and whatnot, but he doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to be a part of their pass rush group, or a guy that you're going to really worry about if he's out there, in a pass rushing situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that with or without Kinlaw, that interior line is very, very deep and very, very good.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch them play and go through it. And we didn't touch on the secondary. Maybe that'll be in our next show because we're getting to the end here.
For sure.
There's definitely some things here. The last thing I'll just say about where we are right now when it comes to the team, and this wasn't a topic, but the only guy that's a rookie that's playing with the starters is Trey, but it's not Trey Lance, it's Trey Sermon. He's the only one that's getting those, starters reps on a regular basis. The other guys are all playing with the 2s and 3s. And so I know there's a lot of people that are getting worried about the cornerback situation, and that's understandable. They're getting them just hold on a little bit because Emmanuel Mosley should be back here in the next few days. I know he's got on the reserve COVID-19 list, but he should be back because it's been a week now, so he should be back soon. And then these rookies are getting the work in, and so we're probably going to be seeing a lot more of them in the coming weeks. And same thing with Aaron Banks. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of him as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think, Aaron Banks, a lot of people are asking about him and, what's going on over at right guard. I think that he'll start to get more burn. And, yeah, I'm sure that these guys will, but they still were drafted late and they're still rookies. And so I believe that cornerback spot has a glaring weakness. And again, if Verrett, who by the way isn't vaccinated, if he misses time for either COVID or injury or what have you, that's going to hurt bad. Like that, everybody's worried about it, getting rid of Jimmy, and what does that second quarterback spot look like? Well, what does it look like at corner? That's way more important, in my opinion, and burning deep in my mind right now about this team, because I'm looking at it going, this team is really, really good. They're one corner away from being great and probably the best team on paper in the whole league. So, whoever, Xavier Howard, Gilmore, somebody, like try to make a major move.
Yeah, if they could do that, it would be over the top in terms of the talent on this team. Because that would be at all levels of the defense. There'd be nothing to really be worried about. Yeah. So we're going to wrap the show up in just a minute, but I like Pine Orr's little thing here. He says he likes my headset. Called the Napalm Strike. This is exactly why I wore this one tonight. You might have noticed, guys, if you're watching my shows, that I've been using my little, Apple iPods lately. But I went with this one because you guys like it, because I look like the helicopter pilot from the A-Team, calling those strikes. Get out there and get after it. That's why I wanted to wear these tonight. Plus, I can hear Jessie better when we're talking with this. It does a better job of canceling out the sound around me, and you start getting old like me, and it's hard to hear. So,
yeah, nothing like hearing me in surround sound, I'm sure.
Real quick, I know we're going to jump off, and I got to get going too. But Raven asks, besides Verrett, which corners look best? And really outside of Verrett, they haven't looked all that great. He's the one guy that's kind of locked down everybody.
I'm sure K1. I'm sure he's looked fine, right? I mean, at least beyond serviceable, above serviceable.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking more. I think the question's
one
more
and two,
regarding the outside guys, and outside of that, they haven't really been. You look at it, they start off with Tim Harris Jr. He's gone now, and it kind of just goes through the list. But it's something to definitely keep an eye on. I wouldn't say there's anybody that I think is really standing out at that corner spot, at the second cornerback position. So I'll keep an eye on that for you guys tomorrow when they get back to practice tomorrow, and I'll be there to check that out. And so maybe I know I had somebody ask me a couple days ago, but I'll try to get some video for that and let you guys see that.
He says, Jack, you look like Tom Allen. I think isn't it Tim Allen?
No, yeah, but Tom's his brother that nobody knows about. No,
yeah.
Yeah.